That's that is a very good question, because what is enough, right? So that's the perception. So, like, if this would be an argument, a debate between a European and a Chinese person, the European would focus probably on the current economic balance and say, okay, well, so here we are, but then the Chinese will say, okay, but wait a minute, look at basically the income per head, right? And look at how we are growing. So what we need to actually grow in the future, you have been using oil a lot to propel your growth. Now it's our turn. It's not enough.
Good example. Can you explain me about the current American-China trade war based upon critical thinking?
Well, in that case, I need to first admit that my information is very limited.
Yeah, very limited.
Because I don't know exactly what.
Okay, very limited fact. So currently, China had big deficit, America big deficit,
right,
against Chinese trade. So Trump say, okay, we need to balance the trade, right?
Right.
This is a fact.
Right. So basically, it's as a Chinese, if I would need to sell that, right? So then, if I would be a negotiator for the United States, I would think, okay, so what would the Chinese put against this? Because basically, what they would say is like, yeah, well, you're not competitive enough. That's why you buy so many products from us, because we can create products that are more attractive than what you can create. That's why you need to import. The American consumer wants to import Chinese goods because they get more value for their dollar. That's the problem. Now you're trying to fix that by putting tariffs on it, but that's not fair. The American, on the other hand, would say, well, why is it that you can provide more value for the dollar? Because you have unfair low wages, unfair low costs. So it's, how can we ever compete with you if you are basically have unfair competitive advantage in terms of wages? So the Americans will argue and look at, okay, so we want to pay our people $35 an hour, and therefore, if we want to protect ourselves, we need to look at what the Chinese are maybe only half as productive as we are, but they pay them $10. Therefore, we need to put 40% import duties on top of the products to compensate for this unfair trade advantage, right? So that's what they are saying, and to a certain extent, you could say that's right, because we want to protect our people. But look at it from the consumer perspective. That means that actually they are paying 40% more, 40% of the of what they are paying for their consumption. Their consumption will increase 40% because of that. So it will hurt the American customer, but that is not in the news. That is basically just being ignored, and so as Chinese delegation, I would definitely give a wake-up call to the American consumer that, do you realize that what your government is doing? You are paying for the jobs in the United States, and the real issue here is that you're not competitive. You do not, the United States as it is not competitive enough. That's the real message.
Then China decided, okay, we're going to buy your product.
Right.
Balancing trade.
Right. Well, they're going to open up the market because the United States is not competitive anyway, so it is assumed that the Chinese will not buy that many American products. Because if they can choose between the Chinese products at the Chinese price point and the American product at the American price point, they will choose the Chinese product.
So we don't talking about wages, the wages differences. Okay, China export China product,
Right.
but China will
Open up the market for American
Yeah.
products because they have nothing to fear.
Yeah. Oh, this is sort of things is the critical thinking.
Right. Well, critical thinking is more okay. So if the critical thinking is more like if Trump tells me as an American citizen, I'm an American citizen. I hear my president tell me because the Chinese have an unfair. They are unfair because they have a big trade surplus. Right, so China has a big trade surplus vis-a-vis the United States because they keep their wages so low. It's unfair. Therefore, they need to open up the products to us. Well, that's not the issue, is it, Trump? Do I, as a critical thinker, think, well, you can tell me that this is the relationship, but
Oh, you're talking about intellectual property and
well, I'm talking about what somebody tells me that is the reality, that is the belief that they are trying to sell me. But as a critical thinker, I say, well, okay, you say that it is unfair trade advantage, but actually what it is that we are not competitive enough. That's why the American consumer wants to buy products from China, because they can offer products at a much lower price point, and that's the issue. It's whether or not we are competitive at the wages that we are trying to pay. Basically,
peanuts.
peanuts. 美味しい。じゃあちょっと試してみよう。多分辛いやつの。
No,
ありがとうございます。So that is critical thinking. So somebody tries to tell you that his
At
belief.
that time, you need to adopt Missy. Last week, we discussed.
Mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive.
Like you need to talk about trade balance, but also intellectual property, but also government-owned enterprise. They need to change the rule of business, right? Sort of things need to cover everything, right? Right?
Well, but Messi, I don't know if okay. How would this apply here, Kimoto-san? How would Messi apply in this example? The example that Uno-san is asking about.
Missy is cover everything, right?
Yeah.
For discussion.
Right.
I think usually
But
it's a very
it
effective
cannot.
for the marketing. For
Right.
example, target segmenting.
But like okay. So all right. So when it's when we are looking at recruitment for my company, Messi would not apply, because I can say, all right, I want to have all the programming skills that we want to offer, so that needs to be so. I want a Java programmer and I want a PHP programmer, right? But there is no if they are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, we still want, if we can, we want to have like if we already have a Java programmer, we already have a PHP programmer. We have one Java programmer, one PHP programmer. Actually, it would be even better if that PHP programmer also had Java programming skills, right? So, in that case, it's not necessarily messy, because actually we want more of it if it's possible. So, messy has its shortcomings. It's more of a okay. If we are going to apply a marketing strategy, then. And we want to make sure that we are addressing everything that's important, like place, price, product promotion. Then we want to make sure that we are actually exhaustive in all the elements that we need to address. Otherwise, we might fail. If we might put everything on the price, but we ignore the product, then we could the marketing could fall short.